Hi everyone, here's the Bookymist once again. I'm currently halfway through Moby Dick and I'm loving it. I adore it. Part of me wants the journey of the Pequod never to end. I don't know why I waited so long to read this book, but while I'm reading it, also considering it's a very busy period for me with my doctorate and with other stuff, I probably won't be posting too often. I'll try to keep a pace of maybe one video per week in the immediate future. Hopefully I'll be able to review Moby Dick by the end of next week. And I just wanted to give you this short update. If you're interested maybe in knowing what videos I'm going to film in the immediate future, consider checking my Patreon page. There's a link in the description box. Recently I posted a video, an article about the future reading projects I'm going to engage in, such as, you know, the read-along as we did with Gravity's Rainbow, what book I'm going to read next with you guys, considering your feedback to my video from last week where I asked your opinion about that stuff. And this video, the one you're currently watching, is kind of a postscriptum to that one. Last week I mentioned that I hadn't really checked what new books were going to be published in 2019, but ever since I've been told that quite a few interesting titles are going to come out this year, and I'm going to discuss the ones that excite me the most today. The first two have actually already come out or are just about to come out, and by the way, this stuff is going to depend whether you're in the US or in the UK or somewhere else entirely. If you read your books in translation, not in English, probably you'll have to wait for a translation, so that might take more time, but anyway, they're going to be out sometime this year. The first two I'm going to talk about are Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. I can't wait to read that one. I'd love to read it as soon as possible because I've never read anything by Marlon James, but I've been told that The Brief History of Seven Killings is one of the greatest novels of the last few years. I'd really love to read it. It's just that it's really immense. It's a bit outside my research area and I cannot really justify to myself why I would be spending that much time on it, at least not in the immediate future. But Black Leopard, I've been told it's kind of a fantasy, it should be fantasy fiction, and well, I'm a sucker for that stuff. I won't wait, I just have to check it out. The other book that's already out and I'm interested in is the feeling, the history, the spirit of science fiction by Roberto Bolano, which, if I got it correctly, is a novel he wrote in the 80s and that was recently rediscovered, and it's just being translated and now it's out. The title, of course, interests me a lot, but I didn't research the novel too much. I tried to approach all the books I read knowing as little about them as possible, especially in terms of plot. But if I got it correctly, it doesn't have too much to do with actual science fiction, more with sex and Mexico City and poets, which is your usual Bolano as far as I know, but there's the catch, as far as I know, because I'm far from an expert on Bolano. I've only read Savage Detectives and The Third Reich, and part of me thinks that maybe I should check out some of his major works before I move into this kind of more esoteric secondary stuff. I recently found at a secondhand, at an Oxfam, a secondhand bookstore, this slender motherfucker, and I will be tackling it in the next few months. The time has come. Also, I'm not entirely convinced by these kinds of publishing operations, you know, publishing always more and more new stuff from these very popular authors who are no longer with us, but I'm not necessarily against it. Some of the greatest works in the history of literature, Gerald Manley Hopkins, Kafka, they were published after the author was dead. In March, The Parade by Dave Eggers is coming out. Dave Eggers, and this is going to sound horrible, maybe he is not among my very favorite writers, but he is definitely second tier, and this sounds very bad, but it's not. Some of his works, The Circle, the heartbreaking work of Staggering Genius, You Shall Know Our Velocity, why not? They are great novels. I love them. I like them really a lot and appreciated them on so many levels, also because he writes in a style that is alternately hilarious and nightmarish, and that it's great anyway. Others of his works, maybe short stories, maybe stuff such as The Hologram for the King, I liked them, but I wasn't entirely convinced by them. And The Parade, again, as far as I know, seems like a new spin on The Hologram for the King type of plot. If it were 800 pages long, I'd probably be skipping it, but since it's supposed to be rather short, I think I'd like to give it a try, and maybe it's going to be another Circle, who knows. In September, what's being called the literary event of the year, Margaret Atwood is going to publish The Testaments, which is a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. What is it? 35 years after the original was published, and I'm excited about it, and I think it's, again, it's a big event for sure. I liked The Handmaid's Tale. I think there's lots to love in that novel and lots of horrid reflections that are sadly as relevant today as, probably even more, or at least as much as they were in the 80s. Maybe I wasn't entirely convinced by some of its generic sides, by the way it plays out as a dystopia, as a work of dystopian fiction. But I'm very curious to see how such a sequel that comes out so many years after the original, how is it going to be? Is it going to be very similar in terms of genre, in terms of structure, the way it's narrated? Is it going to be a completely different thing? Which reminds me that I still have to read Ghost at a Watchman. I loved To Kill a Mockingbird, of course, it's a lovely novel. And also, I'm going to call it, if you are a Michael Chabon fan like me, I'm calling it today, what is it, the 15th of February. Someday in the future he's going to publish a sequel to The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Maybe 10 years from now, but I think that's coming. In March, Ali Smith is going to publish Spring, the third volume in her series, quadrilogy, what is it, about contemporary Britain. I have Autumn on my shelf since it was published. I actually saw her at an event where she discussed the book, and it sounds amazing, it sounds very interesting. I've been told great things about it. It's even very slender. For whatever reason, it's not justified. The text is not justified, and this jars with me in terrible ways. But I'm very curious about all this. I hope I'll be able maybe to check out either just Autumn or the entire series this year, and also more novels are coming out this year from writers such as Howard Jacobson, Zadie Smith, and Ian McEwan, British writers that I'd love to check out. I'm sure I'm going to love their works, but that I still haven't read, with the exception of McEwan, but I only read Sweet Tooth, I think, by McEwan, and loved it. And I'd love to check more of their stuff. Maybe I'll begin with their latest works, maybe I'll go back to some of their more established novels. We'll see. What books coming out in 2019 are you very excited about? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you whenever that is, probably with a review of Moby Dick. Great novel. And thank you for watching as always. Bye guys.